Guarda un po'. Acule di ner gigante. A chi stai dando la caccia questa volta, eh? La situazione si fa interessante. Questo qui ha qualcosa di strano. Non possiamo continuare a investigare con quel coso in giro. Divertiti, lascio tutto nelle tue mani. Ci vediamo più tardi.
What's good, everyone? It's your boy Dak908, aka the Dig Dug himself, and ladies and gents, we are looking at Seething Bazelgeuse. Goose geese. That's a turn, I think, like goose geese. Like, oh, you're being all goose geese about it. Like, bro, what does that even mean? Anyway, we're here with Baz, Seething Baz. The cool thing about Seething Baz is that he's easier to fight than normal Baz. Like, I know that sounds really weird, and that's a full summary of the monster. He's easier to fight than normal Baz. If you guys remember fighting Baz back in the day, he was troublesome. He was troublesome. He was a quote-unquote invader monster. Seething Baz is not really an invader monster, so to speak, in this game. Essentially, almost every other monster is, though, because you'll find monsters who aren't supposed to be in an area, and then they're in that area. Fulgor, Agenoth, Banbaro, so on and so forth. Usually those guys are the ones who usually invade essentially every quest, right along like Savage Devil Joe. Right around this time, you should be running into Savage Devil Joe. I may make a video about him later or something like that, but nevertheless, here we are, Seething Baz. So if you guys remember fighting Baz at all, when I say the same rules apply for the most part, like 90% of those rules apply for the most part. I will actually link you guys to a video that I made a long time ago about Baz. It is actually one of the best videos ever made in my life, right here. Future Dak should remember to put that little link thing in the picture and the little eye thing. But nevertheless, here we are. So here we are, Seething Baz. So one thing you need to learn about Seething Baz is that he is blast. Like, not in the traditional sense of blast. Usually with blast, you get what afflicted with a particular layer of like blast blight, some little sparkly dust on you, then you get hit with another attack, and then you take huge damage. What Baz does, he just explodes. He forgets the dust altogether. It's like, bro, explode, explode, explode. Like the scales that's underneath his chin, underneath his tail, they're the ones doing all the exploding. He will drop them, either flying through the sky, lashing his body about, or forcing them upon you. He will just throw these scales all over the place. They regenerate, so he always has a steady supply of these exploding scales on his body. Now, if you really want to combat this fairly easily, I'd recommend having the ability to block, because, well, if you can just block it all, then it renders it all useless. However, you can still dodge and whatever, but the only issue with dodging it, especially when it comes to full-on explosions, the size of which that is his chin and his tail, is the fact that, well, the radius is actually kind of huge. I won't even sit here and pretend to you. It's kind of a big radius, so you'd have to like dodge completely around and behind the monster. If you're really particular about your positioning, you should be relatively okay, but if you're even more particular about your positioning, it can make things a little hairy for you, because you want to do X amount of damage at this one spot or whatever, but then you have the scales in the way, so having to reposition yourself quite a lot is really the game that Baz likes to play. Now, the whole thing is, he's not as flight savvy as the standard variant. This is a variant, mind you. It's not a full-on subspecies. It's just like a variant, if I'm to be believed. But he doesn't really take to the skies and fly around and drop scales like he used to as often. He will still do this, but he doesn't do it as often. What instead he'll do is he just primarily does that. He'll take flight into the sky and slam his body down. He'll act more like a brute wyvern in most cases, like more so than that the standard variant, because he likes to actually throw his body around, charging at you, dropping from the sky, just dropping from the sky. But speaking from dropping from the sky, he has a new attack. It's a Nova, so to speak, a quote-unquote Nova, where he goes in the sky, flings a bunch of scales, and then like slams his body down, exploding in this huge blast radius. If you have guard and guard up, you're okay. If not, you better run. Here's the funny thing about it though. Out of all the times I've fought Seething Baz, I've only seen him do the Nova like maybe 3 times. We don't even see him do it in this gameplay here. I'm almost 100% sure. But it's an attack that he does have. He will go into the sky. The camera will pull back a little bit, kind of letting you know that it's about to go down. Just leave. It takes him a long time to do the Nova, so once you see the camera start doing his fancy camera work, just fly away. Not really, but like get clean out of the blast radius, like a great distance away, and you should be okay. Now, lastly, one thing I need to note about my man Seething Baz is that he has what I lovingly refer to, no races, hold tight, what I lovingly refer to as Mexican popcorn. Well, when he gets enraged at a certain point of his, a certain point of the match, you'll notice that he'll start flinging these scales. These scales, I believe, are blue in color, and they grow. Like they grow and like fester, and then they explode. Then like not the other ones where they just kind of sit there and then they slowly explode. These will still explode, obviously, but I believe that the damage is more and the blast radius is a little bit bigger. So it just looks like Mexican popcorn. I only say that because I remember it being like pretty colors back when I was a kid or whatever. So I was like, yo, that's Mexican popcorn. It's cool. That's not his name. That's just what I call this one particular thing. Nevertheless, you should watch out for it because they take longer to explode. And he will fling them right along with his standard scales, making it to where the timing in which you should block, roll, or do whatever you need to any of these scales are going to be a little more skewed, because the timing of the Mexican, I'm not going to even call it that anymore. Now it feels weird. Like, it's something I just kind of called in my head. Now I feel like I'm singling out people and having people be offended. Guys, I'm not like that, okay? I'm not. But the blue scales, they would take longer. They take, like, let's say 5 or 6 seconds to explode, whereas the normal scales take about 2 to 3. That's not the actual times. I'm just saying the fact that they're at different intervals and once they explode make it a little bit difficult for you to actually like navigate a bit easier when it comes to fighting him. Only and truthfully because you have to worry about his new zoning practices. By that I mean, again, the scales, the fact that they're differently timed and the explosions are different, the damage is different. So you have to sometimes think to yourself, do I take the small damage or take the big damage in certain cases? So honestly, just watch out for it. It's a notable attack that he has. He does like to do it. Okay, he does like to do it when he gets really enraged. Like when he is like, you know what, I done about had it. He'll start glowing blue under his chest and his tail, and that's when you see he'll start flinging this stuff around. Again, like I said, he could fling it right along with the normal scales, so you kind of have to really watch out as to see what scales are actually being flung and where. But yeah, that's Seething Baz. He's not very difficult. He's really not. If you guys remember how to fight Baz back in the day, then yeah. But if you don't really remember how to fight Baz, because let's say you're new to this, again, I have that video for you. I totally recommend you should watch it, because for the most part, when you fight Seething Baz, he does have a lot of characteristics that Baz actually has, and a lot of veterans will already know what to expect. But if you're a newcomer, like I said, I made an incredibly good Bazelgeuse video. I really put a lot of time into it and a lot of effort. I try to make it a little funny, but a bit more educational. I don't like making videos like that for I like making videos like that, but I wouldn't make it like a long-standing thing on my series, because I don't feel like that's how I really like to communicate education to people. Nevertheless, that's Baz. Now let's talk about his gear, because it's actually quite nice. Okay, so the armor, nice. Okay, it's visually pleasing. The alpha looks good, but the beta, actually, I think it's different. For the beta, a lot of people prefer the female beta, but a lot of people prefer the alpha male. Like, that's funny, but it looks really good. It's aesthetically pleasing. They kind of went slightly, ever so slightly, away from the heavy Viking influence. Still quite Viking-y, if you will. More gladiatoral. What? I don't know. Anyway, it's cool. I like it. Both males and females are really, really cool. Nevertheless, it's not about what it looks like, it's about what it does. And what it does is a lot. Now, if the alpha joint, off the top, you're given earplugs maxed out. No roars bothering you whatsoever. You're good. Save for maybe like a Tigrex roar or something like that. I don't know. I haven't checked the parameters on it. The fact that they actually ruined the Tigrex roar so much makes it so I don't even want to talk about Tigrex anymore, because he sucks now because he has no roar. Nevertheless, crit draw maxed out, making it to where every time you slap a monster with a draw attack, it's going to have 100 points more of affinity. Meaning if you have like a negative 25 weapon with critical draw 3, it'll actually draw 4 plus 75 affinity. It's not making every single attack 100 affinity like it used to. It's now just 100 points added to what you already have. I had to learn that later on. Nevertheless, blast resistance, 2 points into it, 2 points in blast attack, 2 points in the guard, 2 in the bombardier, and jump master. Your set ability is guts, meaning if you get to a certain point of health and then you take full KO damage that would have usually killed you or knocked you out or whatever you want to call it, you instead hang on with 1 health. Kind of cool. I mean, it has its uses and whatnot, but nevertheless, pretty solid set all in all. I do like the earplugs. A lot of people like the guard. The guard comes exclusively from the chest, like just this one chest piece right here. So a lot of people who like to have guard on some of their sets, be it charge blade or lance users, like to go to Baz and pick up this one chest piece and maybe one other piece randomly, and then you're good to go on your guard. Because essentially you only need maybe 3 points in the guard, and this gives you 2 right here, and it's not that bad. Nevertheless, people probably prefer to use this one because you would get the 2 points in the guard, you could put 1 iron wall gem, give you those 3 points in the guard you essentially really need more than anything else, and then you're good. Then you have another slot and then a 4th slot to do whatever you wish. But nevertheless, the armor is fairly nice. I recommend it, and it's really, really good. On top of the armor, you have the weapons. He does have blast-based weapons. His weapons, are they the best blast weapons? It's kind of hard to say. It really depends on what weapon you're using. Like, for some it is, but for others it's not. It's kind of a mixed bag. The actual blast element itself is not the highest on his weapons, but he does have a really good amount of sharpness, especially if you're using like handicraft, which I use a lot of. It does have purple when you use the handicraft. It doesn't necessarily have negative affinity. The blast is about 300-ish average blast, if you will. Modestly high attack, great sharpness. You do have the other Brachydos who has blast, and then you have Teostra who has blast. They kind of, again, it really depends, but I do think his weapons are really good. I love his blast lance, and I do like his blast gun lance. They're very good weapons because not only do I like to use lance and gun lance, but they're just good. They're just good weapons. They're not fantastical weapons. They're not Velkhana weapons, but they're really good. The blast family of weapons, they all hold a certain part in the main meta. Many can use Brachy, Baz, or Teostra and kind of get away with it. Delta Gamma, not so much. Nevertheless, the weapons and the gear is good. Now, to wrap it up, let's just say this final thing about Bazelgeuse. Bazelgeuse? I don't know. His name is interesting. Nevertheless, really good monster. He's always been a good fight. Fantastic fight. Tough fight, if you will. Very tough. Very honest, though. He does have a lot of mix-up potential. He does put a lot of things on the ground that kind of throw you off. But he's an honest fight. Like, everything he does has a counter to. You can either just get out of the way or block it. He didn't have any unblockable attacks, except maybe the Nova. I'm not sure. I never, ever not run guard up. It may be an unblockable. Some Novas are. Nevertheless, I think it's a good fight. It's a good fight. He has great gear. It's not too challenging. Like I said, he's easier than the standard Baz fight because the standard Baz, he loves to actually put the scales in as many spots as possible and then take flight, forcing you to figure out where he is in the sky and also paying attention to what's going on the ground because he's flinging these everywhere. It takes flight, dropping as he flies. It's just a bit more annoying. On top of the fact that he's just, I don't know, he's just a bit more tame, but he's still very like wild, if that makes any sense. What he swap for in certain attacks to gain in other areas is good. It's just a good fight. Honestly, it's not a very annoying fight. I don't mind fighting him that often. He still has that potential to one-shot like half your team though. I was playing with a couple of randoms on Xbox, and he did the Nova and killed everyone except me. And then there was another time where he just threw some scales everywhere, and then he breathed the fire that he does on it, and it killed 2 people in a row. So he has that potential to just completely smack you for not paying attention, but it's not incredibly difficult. Also, I think the last thing I should note is that if you are going to fight him, if you just fought Velkhana, perfect. Make a weapon, bring that weapon here, and then use that weapon to fight him because his main weakness is out of ice. Other than that, that's pretty much everything I got for you in terms of Seething Baz. So with that being said, everyone, thank you so much for coming in and watching this video here today. My name has been Daknonawade, aka the Dig Dug himself, and you all have a wonderful day. We will get another video out, I think tomorrow. And then I'm really certain we can get a video out every day this week. I only have a few monsters left, and I pre-recorded a lot of these fights. This actual fight was actually recorded like on a Friday, and I have 2 other fights recorded for you guys. So pretty soon we're just gonna knock out the rest of the story, and then we're going to move to like the guiding land of monsters. There's a few of them there, but nevertheless, it's been your boy. You all take care. Have a wonderful day. Peace.